Welcome all. So, today we will be discussing about rubidium strontium isotope is systematic. The systematic have found frequent application in earth and ocean science, mainly to find the provenance of sediments and various kind of rocks and what kind of minerals are forming. In addition, it is a very useful tool to find the age of a particular rock or mineral type. So, we will have a detailed discussion about this robust proxy, which found several applications in geology. So, if you see the natural occurring isotopes of rubidium, we have two natural occurring isotopes. One is rubidium 85, the other one is 87 rubidium. These are the two natural occurring isotopes with an atomic number of around 37. So, if you see the isotopic abundances for these things, so this is around 72.1654%, whereas the exact abundance for 87 is 27.8346%. So, these are the abundances for these two isotopes. So, 87 basically is the dominating one, and if you translate this into the atomic weight of it, this corresponds to 85.468 AMU. Okay. So, these are the two natural occurring isotopes. One interesting aspect is this 87 rubidium is radioactive. So, basically this 87 rubidium with a beta decay forms 87 strontium antineutrino, and the decay energy is 275 keV. Okay. So, we know strontium has four natural occurring isotopes. These are 84, 86, 87 and 88. These are strontium natural occurring isotopes. So, if you look for the isotopic abundance for these natural occurring isotopes, the 84 is about 0.56%, the 86 strontium is 9.87%, and 87 strontium is 7.04%, and 88 strontium is 82.53%. And if you try to compare them with their atomic weight, which should be weighted number of abundances and atomic mass, this turns out to be 87.589 AMU. And we are interested the decay of 87 into one of the isotopes of 87 strontium, and this is radiogenic. So, this is radioactive and this is radiogenic, right. If we want to visualize the spectrograph for rubidium strontium together, the spectrograph which should have the atomic mass, the spectrographs we generally get from mass spectrometer. So, let us say 84, 85, 86, 87 and 88, these 5 isotopes if we are focusing on. For strontium, 84 is very tiny, so it is about 0.5%, but then 85 there is no isotope. For 86 it is should be around 10%, and 87 should be around 7%, whereas 88 should be the remaining 83.5% to make it 100%. This is how the strontium will look like. And if you, so this is for strontium, and if you try to plot the rubidium, so what will happen is basically rubidium will also follow this background value 84, there is no isotope for rubidium, but 85 there is a big chunk, right. So, we have around 72% of 85. Then if you see, then 1/3 of this or 27% has to be rubidium. So, this is rubidium. So, basically you need to understand that your strontium has to be very pure and should be rubidium free when you are doing the mass spectrometric analysis. If you are not doing that, then what will happen? There will be a interference of rubidium at strontium, and you need to, if that happens, then you need to be careful about your chemistry, purify better so that you get the pure strontium. If that is not feasible for the given analysis, then what you need to do is you have to look for the 85 signature, the isotope 85, which is one of the peak for rubidium. If you are seeing that there is a peak for 85 in the strontium, then the same amount of correction has to be applied at 87 atomic mass to make a interference free strontium isotopic analysis. But today we are not interested in the spectrograph or the corrections. This you can go back to any mass spectrometry discussions where you will clearly see how these corrections can be made. But today we will discuss how this radioactive decay scheme can be used to find age of a rock. So, that is what we are going to discuss today. So, before we get into the decay scheme or its application, I will just briefly touch upon the geochemistry of rubidium and strontium. Rubidium is a alkali metal, it fall in 1A, it has a ionic radius which is of the order of 1.48 Armstrong, and it is quite similar to that of potassium, which is actually 1.33 Armstrong. Because of this comparable ionic radius and the oxidation state, rubidium often replaces potassium in a lattice. So, in minerals basically potassium found as the major mineral, whereas rubidium is a trace element, and potassium rich mineral is likely to have more of rubidium, mainly because they have similar ionic radius and oxidation state. So, one can replace the another. So, that is why you are likely to have more rubidium in a potassium rich mineral. In the same place, if you look for strontium, strontium is a alkali earth metal 2A, and if you compare the ionic radius of strontium, which is actually 1.13 Armstrong, matches pretty well with that of calcium, which is 0.99 Armstrong, right. So, in calcium rich mineral you are likely to get more of strontium. The main reason is they have similar ionic radius and oxidation states, and hence they can replace each other, and often you find that calcium rich minerals like the carbonates, apatites or calcium piezoiclase, they are likely to have more of strontium. So, this is obvious that if you have a mineral that has a potassium by calcium, if you compare in a mineral, if the potassium by calcium ratio is very high, then you are likely to have a rubidium by strontium very high. If you have more of rubidium, then you are likely to have more of 87 rubidium in this, and the stable 86 strontium also very high, because rubidium is just translated into 87 rubidium here. Strontium is directly proportional to its stable isotopic abundance of 86. If you have more of 87 rubidium, then this particular mineral with high potassium and calcium ratio is likely to have high 87 by 86 strontium over period of time, because the 87 rubidium is decaying to 87 strontium, and hence wherever you want to look for high 87 strontium by 86 ratios, you are likely to get them in potassium by calcium in a mineral where potassium by calcium ratio is very high. Okay. Let us now focus on the radioactive decay scheme of 87 rubidium, which decays to 87 strontium with a half life of 48.8 into 10 to the power 9 years. Because the half life is so large, you have to make the precise measurement so as to see the radiogenic growth that is occurring in 87 strontium. So, let us say if you try to find an expression for 87 strontium at any time, that should be equal to 87 strontium at T is equal to 0 plus 87 strontium that came through radioactive decay of 87 rubidium. That means, this is the initial number of 87 strontium that was there in a given system, and this 87 strontium is the radiogenic part of it. this radiogenic part we can write as 87 strontium at T is equal to 0, and the radiogenic part can be written as 87 rubidium at 0 T is equal to 0 minus 87 rubidium at T is equal to T, right. So, let us say at any point of time you had, when the system was at T is equal to 0, let us say we had 100 atoms, and now let us say we have 30 atoms. So, the difference, which is 70 atoms, actually has the 70 atoms of 87 rubidium is decayed and has produced 87 strontium. That is why we have written this difference term. Now, it is always difficult to go back in time and found something at T is equal to 0. So, what I will do is, instead of writing at T is equal to 0, I will translate that into today's term, like n is equal to n 0 e to the minus lambda t. So, instead of using n 0, what I will do is I will write n is equal to n 0 is equal to n e to the power lambda t. That is what I am going to do here. So, this term will be 87 strontium at T is equal to 0. This term will be 87 rubidium at T e to the power lambda t minus 87 rubidium at T. So, this will be 87 strontium T is equal to 0 plus 87 rubidium at T is common here. So, I will take it out. So, this will be e to the power lambda t minus 1. So, this is the expression for 87 strontium at T, right. Now, we know 86 strontium is a stable isotope, and that is not going to change significantly over a period of time. So, if I now divide that with 86 strontium, because I know that 87 strontium and 86 strontium, that is what the isotopic ratio, and we are interested in finding these isotopic ratios. So, if I divide that, whether it is equal to T is equal to T or T is equal to 0, the 86 strontium should be same. So, I have divided that with all the 3 terms. So, basically what we are getting, what we got is 87 strontium by 86 strontium at any point of time will be equal to 87 strontium by 86 strontium at T is equal to 0 plus 87 rubidium by 86 strontium at T e to the power lambda t minus 1. Okay. This is what this equation I have rewritten here. Alright, if you see this equation more carefully, you will see that this is actually a linear equation, like y, this is the initial number, so it is a constant, and this is a variable term, so let us say it is your x and m. So, this is your a linear equation. So, any sample with time t, the age of the rock is let us say t, then that should follow this straight line. Now, there are 2 unknowns here, this one and t, we are interested in finding out. So, what we can do, we can follow a graphical approach, like let us say something like this. Here the x is 87 rubidium by 86 strontium, and here 87 strontium by 86 strontium. Let us say I got a rock and I am interested in finding the age of that rock. I can take 3 pieces of that where I expect that they have the same age. So, if so, let us say t is equal to 0, let us say those samples fall here, here, here. At t is equal to 0, these 3 samples which are expected to have same age has same 87 strontium by 86 strontium, but different 87 rubidium by 86 strontium. The main reason why rubidium by strontium ratio will be different, because they have different chemistry. rubidium is a alkali metal and likes to go with more of potassium, whereas strontium is more likely to go with the calcium. So, you are likely to find heterogeneity among the samples that has same age, but because strontium itself is both of these strontium are have same chemistry, you may get samples which have same initial isotopy ratio. If that happens, then over period of time these samples will decay, and because of the decay you will lose 87 strontium and there will be a gain of 87 strontium. So, they will actually follow something a diagonal path in this direction. So, at t is equal to t, these samples will fall here. Okay. So, this is the line that is for today and this is the line at the initial time. So, what you need to do is you take these 3 samples, measure the 87 rubidium by 86 strontium today, measure the 87 strontium by 86 strontium today and put them in the graph. You will find a linear trend, and the y intercept for that, if you look this equation more carefully, the y intercept gives you the initial 87 by 86 ratio when the rock got crystallized, that value of the reservoir is the y intercept, whereas the slope of this line, let us say m will be equal to e to the power lambda t minus 1. That means, lambda t will be log of 1 plus m. That means, if you are interested finding the time factor, that should be 1 by lambda m plus 1. So, this line is called isochrone line. Isochrone means iso is same, chrone means age. If you are looking for samples that has same age, they will follow a single straight line that will satisfy this expression. Okay. Based on using this isochrone equation, you can derive age of any rock. The success of isochrone approach to find an age depends on few assumptions. First is the system have remained closed since their crystallization, the rock formation. There has been no gain or loss of rubidium or strontium. So, once the rock have formed, since their formation there is no additional strontium supply or there has been no removal of rubidium or strontium from the system. If that has happened, like more often what happens is the surfacial weathering processes can create removal of rubidium strontium from a system. If those kind of processes are happening, then you will not get a isochrone because the system is disturbed. In that case, you need to physically or carefully evaluate each of your samples to ensure that what you are analyzing has remained in a closed system since their formation. The second assumption is homogeneity of initial strontium isotopic ratio. What I mean is, so when you start your samples, we discuss about this isochrone line where you have started 3 samples from the same ratio and then they evolve over period of time and you get a isochrone line. But let us say if all these points are not starting from the same initial ratio, then they may not follow a straight line. They will critically depend on this homogeneity of 87 by 86 strontium. That is one important assumption that is involved in the 87 by for the isochrone. In addition, you need to have a heterogeneity in rubidium by strontium ratio. If that is not happening, like if you have strontium isotope of your initial ratio same, but if all of them have same 8 rubidium by strontium, then basically you are creating one single point. If to form this line, you should have a heterogeneity in rubidium by strontium of the samples, and often you find heterogeneity actually, because there are, if you want to create a heterogeneity, you have to rely on calcium rich minerals to potassium rich minerals, and based on the potassium by calcium ratio in these samples, you can have the heterogeneity. More the heterogeneity, you are likely to have a better data spread, and you are likely to get a good precision in your age constraint. The discussion till now focuses on systems which are undisturbed, but often what happens is some of these rocks go through metamorphic alterations, and if that happens, this equation changes drastically and you may not able to use it to find precise age information. But set if the temperature and pressure conditions are such that there has been mineral scale change, but rocks have remained intact, that time you can use this expression to find the metamorphic age of a rock. I will discuss how that happens. So, I will try to approximate this equation first. So, we know e to the power lambda t, if you do the Taylor expansion. So, this will be like something. So, e to the power lambda t in a Taylor expansion will be e to the power x is equal to 1 plus x square by 2 factorial and goes on. For high lambda, for low lambda, for low lambda values, you can assume that the second order or the higher orders of lambda is almost equal to 0. In that case, e to the power lambda t can be approximated as 1 plus lambda t. If you put that, so e to the power lambda t minus 1 basically converts to lambda t. If you do that, 87 strontium by 86 strontium at any point of time will be 87 strontium by 86 strontium at t is equal to 0. If you use this here, so basically this e to the power lambda t minus 1, this term becomes lambda t. Now, it is not equal, we have approximated this. So, 87 strontium by 86 strontium at any point of time can be approximated for low lambda values, which is actually the case because your T half is of the order of 10 to the power 9. If you measure lambda, that is also comes around 10 to the power minus 10 to the power minus 10 year inverse. So, in that case 87 strontium by 86 strontium T is equal to 0 plus 87 rubidium by 86 strontium T lambda T. Now, if we try to put a graphical representation of this equation with time, if you try to see how does 87 by 86 strontium varies for different minerals. Let us say you are looking for a mineral where rubidium is 0. In that case, this will not change wherever it starts, that stays. Like if you take a carbonate where rubidium by strontium is basically 0, then in that case this will be flat and this 87 by 86 strontium is not going to change. But if you have a higher value of rubidium by strontium, this let us say if 1, then this will follow, and if it is, if you take a higher rubidium by strontium, let us say 5, that is going to change. So, basically what it is reflecting is the 87 by 86 strontium, if you try to look for the time evolution, so they will depend on the rubidium by strontium. It will increase more faster when the rubidium by strontium ratio is higher. We will use this philosophy to find a metamorphic history of a given rock. Let us say this is the x axis here represents time in past. So, this is today, this is the time when the rock have formed. Let us say there was a time when t is equal to m and t m plus delta m. So, within this time span of delta m, there was a metamorphic event when the rock got metamorphosed at t is equal to T m and it sustained for delta m amount of time. So, the system got again closer at T m plus delta m. Let us say the metamorphism was intense enough to make mineral scale changes, like it could change the strontium system, rubidium strontium system for biotites and feldspars and let us say apatite. At the mineral scale there has been changes, but on rock scale they have remained almost intact and there has been no major change in the rubidium strontium changes. So, what we are basically trying to say is there has been internal modification or redistribution of rubidium and strontium within a rock, but on a rock scale there has been no change. If that is the case, let us say this is 87 strontium by 86 strontium at T is equal to 0, let us say there is a strontium ratio, let us say 705 or some number. So, this is that line, right. So, let us say this is the starting point. So, over point of time let the rock followed a straight line, this is the isochron line for the rock. Okay. If you see the apatite which is a rubidium rich, so there will not be any change in the rubidium. So, this apatite will initially follow a straight line parallel to the x axis, because the rubidium in this is low, we are talking of apatite here. Let us say if you are talking of biotite, then it will have a higher rubidium by strontium compared to the rock. So, you are likely to have evolution like this, but it will be highest for potassium feldspar, because you have highest potassium in potassium feldspar among these rocks. That means it will have a highest rubidium. If you have more rubidium, then the 87 by 86 strontium with time will be more stiffer for potassium feldspar. So, they will grow like this in the initial time, right. Because there is no mineral scale, rock level scale change. So, this rock straight line is not going to alter. Now, we have said that there is a change, metamorphic change at around this time. So, what will happen? I will make it more. So, what will happen? This will go here, right. So, everything will constantly grow. This is a linear line, sorry for the drawing, this is expected to be a linear line. So, after this time, because there is a internal change, they all will come to the rock value during the closing period of this delta m. All the mineral will come to this place, they will converge and they will come to the rock composition. From now on, they will, now apatite will go follow a straight line, the biotite will again start evolving and the feldspar will again evolve through this. Now that the strontium isotopic ratio got re-homogenized or got a new value at this point of time. So, there are two time information that we are interested in. If you can extract this information, this is going to give you the metamorphic age of the rock, and if you can find this information from the starting to till today, that is going to give you the rock formation age. Now that the whole rock never changed its path, what you can do is you take few pieces of the rock and put it in a isochron, you are likely to get the rock formation age which should be doable. So, that is like Ti. So, how do we find the metamorphic age? What you need to do is, because there has been mineral scale changes, if you put different minerals in an isochrone, they will converge to this isotopic initial ratio, and for that reason at a mineral scale if you plot them, you will find the metamorphic age, and that is how you will get the metamorphic the history of metamorphic rock, when it got metamorphosed and what is the exact age of the rock, provided there is the changes are at a mineral scale and have not influenced the rock in a greater scale. Thank you.